So, welcome, Megan.
Well, thank you for having me.
And thank you for joining me. I thought it might be a really good idea to have a little chat about photon light therapy because it's been going now for quite a few years. There's very many hundreds of people that are interested in photon light therapy that have received it already. And I believe, it might be nice for them to know a little bit more about it. And especially for those people too that don't know anything about it at all, this is a great opportunity for them to gain a little more understanding other than what's in my web page,
Absolutely.
So hi everybody, and thank you very much for listening. We did have some very strange technical issues before we recorded this particular session. So if you come in for those live, then I do apologize once again that we couldn't do that. Okay, so photon light therapy. Let me first say that photon light therapy was channeled, it was brought through by me in 2015. And I am now in a phase of retirement, of gradual retirement. And so my guide, Black Elk, I'm sure most of you know that my guide and twin flame is Nicholas Black Elk. Well, Black Elk suggested that Megan really take over the reins of photon light therapy because I'm not going to be in a position to carry it on for the foreseeable future. So maybe I'll do photon light therapy for another 2 or 3 years yet, but after that, then Megan will be taking over the reins. Megan is fully trained as a photon light therapy practitioner, and she's fully trained to train other practitioners as well. So when I do completely end my relationship as photon light therapy practitioner, then Megan will be your go-to person for learning to practice photon light therapy. And right now you can avail of Megan's help for a photon light therapy session. Okay, so photon light therapy comes in sessions. It's a 10-day session over 5 stages. And it must be done therefore by you at home, in your own home, and by the practitioner in her or his own home as well. So there's some correspondence via email, but most of the work is done by you at home, and you receive every understanding and tuition and guidance in a program, a very easy to read and understand program. And Megan and I are there, as are many other photon light therapy practitioners as well. Throughout the whole world, there's photon light therapy practitioners. There's practitioners in China, in America. There's a practitioner in Africa. There's plenty of practitioners in the UK and in Ireland. There's quite a few in Australia and in the United States as well. There's practitioners in Europe. I have lost count of the many practitioners there are for photon light therapy at this stage, because it's how many years? It started in 2015. That's 10 years of practicing and teaching photon light therapy. So it's been impossible for me to count now how many people are actually out there practicing it. You too can practice photon light therapy. And if you're interested in that, you can let either myself or Megan know when the video is ended. And we'll give you our details in the about section of this video. To begin with, let me first introduce how photon light therapy came about. Let me introduce the sort of the basic 5 stages of photon light therapy. And during that, Megan will interject with information that she's received through her own intuition from her guides with the spirit world in the duration of her practice in photon light therapy. So she may interject with some valuable information there as well. But let me first just go back to the bare bones of photon light therapy and how it came about. Photon light therapy began in 2015. I was at that stage running a not-for-profit organization called the Two Roads Light Foundation. It was a charity set up for helping people who required healing, required counseling and such, and perhaps just did not have the finance to be able to do that. So many people gave of their generosity, and I did a lot of work here and abroad, and raised a lot of monies for that charity. And it was on one such occasion when I was in a gentleman's house, a young gentleman in his 20s, and he suffered from agoraphobia, or agoraphobia, as they say in the States. And everything was going well. I was working with Padre Pio as well as with Black Elk and many other of my guides. And when we went to leave that gentleman's house, Padre Pio said to the man, thank you very much for your time and for allowing us to be here today. We will be practicing photon light therapy with you for the next 2 weeks. Naturally, the man asked me, what is photon light therapy? And my honest response was, I have no idea, but it's going to be happening. So I went home, I sat down, connected with all my guides and said, what is going on? What is this photon light therapy? Immediately a spirit came through and introduced himself as Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud was an Austrian psychoanalyst, very famous psychoanalyst. Sigmund Freud's not very popular today because Sigmund Freud actually, when he was living, and he was a psychiatrist, he was a psychologist, a psychoanalyst. When he wrote a lot about the self and the ego and stuff like that. When he was living and working with, in particular, postmenopausal women, he was very sore on women. He used to diagnose women as being completely neurotic, which was a very sort of negative term, you know, then and now, I suppose. But like all spirits, he's been in the spirit world for a very long time. And like all intelligent beings, he has awakened and he has understood his folly, recognized his mistakes, and made steps to change those mistakes. And so photon light therapy was his maiden voyage in really establishing his higher self on earth, not just in the spirit world, but on earth too. So here was this guy called Sigmund Freud, who was suddenly talking to me and about photon light therapy. So I said to him, listen, fair enough, I'll get back to you. That's the way I did it. So I cut off the channel and I went about my business. Megan have you actually come across Sigmund Freud whilst you've been working with photon light therapy thus far?
In the very beginning, I did, and it was interesting. And then, like other aspects took over, but he came in quite a bit in the beginning.
Yeah.
And
And how do you find him?
I feel that there is like he's doing work in the higher realms of the mistakes he made in this realm
Yes.
on Earth. So it's like his way of like almost compensating for his mistakes. So there's like a sincerity, whereas when he was on Earth, he couldn't understand from the earthly level what was happening. And then you had wrote in your thing that he misdiagnosed people. What he showed me too, like in the imagery, was this imbalance when, if you look at it, like was just the system. So it's like that it was just getting the system back to how it's supposed to be, like on
The nervous system.
yeah. So that's what I kind of saw was like
Yeah.
that. And it kind of like when the nerves are frayed, without getting into too much scientific, but just showing that that was more of the cause of some of the psychosis, as opposed, and then so it's like as opposed to these labels that were given and diagnoses that were given, that there was like a deeper level that he wants to bring forth to awareness. And like you said, in like embodying the higher aspect of him for the mistakes that he made when he was practicing on an earth
Yeah.
level.
Yeah. And actually that's exactly what he said to me the second time that I channeled him. I was in a bed and breakfast. I was having a little sort of weekend breakaway by the coast. And and Sigmund Freud came through. Actually, I was talking to someone um over Facebook. I was talking to someone live over Facebook and or a messenger. And he came through and I says, Lisa, listen, I apologize, dear, but there's a spirit coming through. And I think this is Sigmund Freud again. And I don't know why he's coming through with you, but maybe it's just because of we're talking about the nervous system here, because we were talking about the nervous system. So so she was like, oh, I don't know about Sigmund Freud. But he came through and he said to us that just pretty much what you've said, Megan. He says he realizes the mistakes that he made in his diagnosis of women when he was alive. And he realizes that there are certain maladies or syndromes of the nervous system that are a real thing. For example, now we talk about fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue, you know, and those are just two examples, or ME even. Those are just two examples of what he was talking about now. He now recognizes that these things actually exist, that it is caused by inflammation of the nervous system. And I think he actually said that they were caused by inflammation of the nervous system due to poor mind control. Now, that was a strange sort of phrase to use, but I understood then through subsequent chats with him that by the phrase poor mind control, he meant that the person just was not conscious, that was living out of a reactory state, reacting to the world and to their emotions and to everything that is around them, rather than being grounded in a conscious state, a spiritually conscious state. So that's what he was calling good mind control, that you'd be sort of in a kind of a mastery state where you're aware of your emotions, you let them flow, and you act out of positive action, rather than reactory, maybe perhaps always negative action. So it was Sigmund Freud, and then, but still I doubt it. And one of the things that was very apparent to me at that time was this spirit that I was talking to, that I was connected to, looked very like not my stepfather, my father-in-law. He looked extremely like my father-in-law. And I did wonder, is my father-in-law having a bit of a laugh with me, because he would be that type of a person. So I Google Images, Sigmund Freud, and there are images of Sigmund Freud on Google Images, and you would just swear that was my father-in-law. They are so similar in looks. So I was kind of satisfied then at this stage that yes, that is Sigmund Freud. He did say to me, which I was honored at the time, and I will totally own now and understand now, completely own what he said. He said that my intelligence, with regards science, of the science of feeling in particular, the science of being and the science of spirituality was way above anything that he could have aspired to on earth. And he said that I met his intelligence completely, and even excelled his intelligence. So that was quite something for him to say. It showed a lot of humility, I believe, but it also gave me confidence, to keep going with photon light therapy. So that's how it came about. And then I had to actually sit down. Of course, Megan, I had to sit down and begin it without any idea what was going to happen. Now, though the 5 stages of photon light therapy certainly were there from the very beginning, but I couldn't recognize them. My nervous system had to be healed first. So I said to you, whenever you applied to become a photon light therapy practitioner, and anybody that's listening, if you feel that you would like to become a photon light therapy practitioner, I will say to you that your nervous system must be harmonious with the photon light therapy team. Firstly, it must be in a good state of function. And then it must be harmonious with the frequencies of the photon light therapy team. That was then headed by the intelligence of Sigmund Freud. My nervous system was not. They had to heal it first. So I went through a full day, really, of experiencing healing of my nervous system. They were pretty much regulating my nervous system. I could feel lumps and bubbles and pops in my arms and legs and my stomach. It was like my nerves were on fire. I wasn't experiencing pain, but I was experiencing all this strange sensation as if water was flowing through me. And at some stage, it even felt like I had flattened out, like my entire physical being was like a two-dimensional flat figure, which is a very strange, and I couldn't understand it at the time. But now I understand that it comes along with the entire photon light therapy experience. And in fact, many people who have been receiving photon light therapy have reported that feeling to me. And if I practice photon light therapy with anybody in person, they experience that feeling as well. So although I don't have the science to corroborate that feeling, I can say that it is common to people receiving photon light therapy. So there I was. Sorry, Megan.
I just want to add, and I feel that it's also kind of a 0 point of like a 0 point of the energy field of like
Absolutely,
the
absolutely.
coming into like and being grounded for the first time in years and years, and often in our lifetimes, there does kind of come that flat feeling. I just wanted to add that in before you continue.
Yes, I agree. I agree with you. There is absolutely truth in that, and my intuition is telling me that this is absolutely true, that it is connected with the 0 point. I do understand that with photon light therapy, the client at some stage, their consciousness is brought into 0 point, and then the work arises out of that 0 point. I cannot pin the exact moment when that happens, but I know that it does happen. So you're very spot on there, Megan, with your observations. I find, Megan, that you are very observant to the actual science behind photon light therapy. For me, it was a progression. For me, it was, you know, a eureka moment, many eureka moments. As I was experiencing photon light therapy practiced on me by the spirit team, I was beginning to understand the science of it. Now, they were telling me about the science of it because I'm very good clairaudience. And so my guide Black Elk and Arthur Conan Doyle and some of the other doctors in the photon light therapy team, I'll talk about those in a minute, they were actually telling me about the science of it. Now, my son is a physicist, and so I was blessed with that service, really. I was able to go to him and I was able to say, tell me, what exactly is a photon? What exactly is a neuron? And what exactly is an electron? And what exactly is happening when we experience this? And so he was able to give me his scientific jargon, scientific understanding of it, which really corroborated my intuition, female intuition, you could say, or intuition. And then I did happen across in one of my workshops, I was teaching shamanism at the time, and I did happen across a client who was taking the workshop. She was studying human biology. She was studying the nervous system in particular. And she had her books open at a diagram of the central nervous system. And I said, do you mind if I ask you a question? And so I asked her a question connected with what I was learning about photon light therapy at the time. And she confirmed it for me. And she says to me, as far as I know about the nervous system, what you are saying about photon light therapy is true. This must be something that works. And so I began to practice on other people. Megan, my first practice was on the gentleman that Padre Pio had said, we're going to practice photon light therapy on you for the next 2 weeks. So I sat down every day for 2 weeks for about 15 minutes each day. And I opened myself up to the photon light therapy team. I experienced the sensations again of my nervous system changing. And I received the 5 stages. At that time, it was done over 2 weeks. And as I went on to practice with other people, I practiced over 2 weeks. And then the photon light therapy said to me, we're condensing this now into 10 days. So it was then condensed into 10 days. There's 5 stages within those 10 days. The first stage is called isolation. And I'm going to go through each stage very, very quickly. And I know that Megan has got a lot of exciting things to add about the stages as well. So I'm going to go slowly so that Megan can interject and tell you guys all of the sort of the scientific jargon and the experience that she's had. Black Elk could not have chosen a more worthy person to carry photon light therapy on, Megan, and I honor you for that.
Well, thank you. That's an honor to hear that. Thank you so much.
Well, we're so pleased and so happy that, you know, my life can be made a little easier with going forwards with the work that I'm doing now, rather than sort of carry photon light therapy on for the foreseeable. So stage 1 is isolation stage. And it's called the isolation stage because if you imagine your physical being, your physical body, and you know you've got this electromagnetic energy field around your body, it's electrical. So for a start, photons are they're particles of light. They're so small that you can't see them. They're completely invisible. So you don't actually see colored light coming to you, or you don't actually see the colored light in your energy field, but the practitioner will see the colored light. Now, the photon light is directed into your energy field from your spiritual body. And in your spiritual body, which is the furthest sort of frequency or the highest frequency of your energy field, in that spiritual body is the Photon Light Therapy team. They're working from there. They're working through me or through Megan or through any practitioner who is connected to you via a solar plexus cord. It connects the practitioner's energy field to your energy field. So whatever is happening in the practitioner's energy field is then easily transmitted to your energy field. Right through from the spiritual higher frequency to the etheric lower frequency of the energy field. And then what happens in your etheric energy field will manifest in your physical field or your physical being, your physical life. The photons are directed into your etheric energy field via the spiritual energy field. So they go right through from the spiritual to the mental, through into your emotional field and right into your etheric body. And they then become manifest to your etheric body. This is the first healing therapy that I've come across, that I personally have come across, that works directly through all systems of the energy field, through the spiritual, the mental, the emotional, and the physical. And it also works with your mind, body, spirit, and emotion, which mirrors those four systems. It also works with your respiratory flow in your body, the respiratory flow in your body, the endocrine flow in your body, the lymphatic flow in your body, and the circulatory flow in your body. So all of those four systems of your physical body are working with photon light therapy, and photon light therapy engages with them.
And the respiratory system. That was the last one.
And the rest, I think I might have said the respiratory system in case I didn't say that. And the respiratory system, the endocrinial system, the lymphatic system, and the circulatory system. Stage one then sets up like a force field around your entire energy field. And it's like a force field. It's like a protective bubble. It ensures that whilst you're having photon light therapy, that no other outside influences can disturb the work that's actually happening, because it must happen over 10 days. So that isolation is set up for 10 days. It also ensures that you are fully receptive to the work itself. So there's that isolation is for those two reasons. In that first stage as well, you will receive everything that the Photon Light Therapy team believe is best for you. So certain frequencies come in certain variances of photons. So for example, I may see that someone, say, let's for example, someone has depression and anxiety. The photons that the team will use will come, and I will see them as a dark blue and a deep red color, given a kind of like a violet flame as well, you know. So those two frequencies of light are directed into the person's energy field, and this helps them to recover from depression. No matter what the client needs, the photons will be designed especially for that. And the Photon Light Therapy team know what someone with cancer needs, what someone with depression needs, what someone with some kind of autoimmune system, autoimmune illness needs, what someone with a broken leg might need. So that's stage one. And they send those photons alongside a spiritual serum that is made up of various frequencies to activate your endocrineal system, to produce various hormones that your nervous system needs as well to balance. So there's a lot of science behind photon light therapy, and I'm not going to go into the full scientific explanation here. Megan's very good at that, so she may give you snippets of that, but it would take us all day if we go into the actual science of photon light therapy, wouldn't it, Megan?
That'd be a whole nother video, I think.
or 10.
Yeah, yeah, because then I'll start going, kind of going off on the kind of geeking out with the science.
You really geeked out with it, didn't you?
I do. Well, and I'll say with the isolation, what I found when I first did the therapy, it almost, and I've had people that I've done the therapy to, it's almost like a warm blanket. And the experience was different for me because I'm a very clairvoyant. So I actually saw right away, I saw the light spectrums. Even when I first received it. So I could see these photonic light spectrums, and they're like, it's almost like these different color spectrums, like with different shapes. Like if I were an artist, I would paint it, but I don't have the gift of drawing. But when in the isolation, it's like this warm blanket where you just feel safe. And I think in a lot of ways, people haven't been embodied. And so, and then once you're put into that container and then you're in that protection, it's all of a sudden you can start to feel yourself a little more. And so I think that's where the isolation comes in, especially for me in the beginning and the clients I've had, like, wow, I just feels like I'm being hugged. And then it's also like you're actually just tuning into yourself too. Like we talked about the love that is you. Like, so it's like that they're just providing that. So that I feel like that's a really vital part of it. And then, you know, actually being able to clairvoyantly see what's happening. It was just so beautiful. I remember I was in Colorado, this is, you know, 5 years ago or so, when I first did the photon light therapy as a client of yours. And I remember we were way up in the mountains, very, very high, like almost by the continent. Yeah, and I remember just seeing it's almost like you see it like it's like a what do you call it, a constellation almost out of photons. And then the color spectrum is just so beautiful. So that's the beginning stage of the isolation. And you can also kind of feel it within it can also like be an activator. And I'll let you continue on, but the whole thing can actually activate spiritual gifts as well, because it did end up activating things for me after the first session, even light codes and light language and those sorts of things. And that started with me for like even in the first day. So I'll let you continue on to the next phase, but that's what I wanted to add in about the isolation, is that warm feeling that you get. And it's really just you, but it's of course the team is supporting you. But when you're connecting with your soul, and maybe it's unfamiliar because like we talked about with what Freud had brought in, a lot of us are disembodied. So we're multidimensional, we're not aware of our multidimensionality, and we're scattered here and there. And so when we finally pull ourselves into the physical body, it's like, whoa, and then we're experiencing what it is to be in the body. And then to have that awareness that you're protected. and supported, and then actually coming into yourself. So I'll say that about isolation, and we'll move on.
Yes, I absolutely agree with that. I can agree with that, and I've had that sensation myself of being activated, being at home, feeling held and loved. And I mean, when I began to channel photon light therapy for the first time, there was really a very much a homecoming for me. I always say that photon light therapy comes from the stars, and I'm a Syrian being. I come from Sirius, and for me, when I was practicing and learning and having the discussions with spirit about it, it really felt to me like I was at home with my family in Sirius, and this intelligence was normal. And somehow, having never studied the nervous system, I understood. I just understood, and I must have I've got that from my star self.
Absolutely. That's exactly what it is. I
So
feel like
yeah, so I
connecting with
believe you're
yourself.
right. It's a series of activations.
And I have had other clients connect with their star family as well. I had one girl, she's like, wow, and she shared her visions with me. I won't share it publicly here, but I have had several clients tell me that they did end up connecting with their star family
Oh,
during the
good.
therapy.
Oh, good. Yes. And actually, I remember speaking light language too at that point. It was around that time that I began to speak the light language that I bring. And I haven't stopped. I mean, even now, I just feel like, I can feel it in my throat,
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. And that's the
yeah,
language of the stars, and the,
yeah,
in study in my downloads of light language, they're multidimensional pockets of
yeah.
information too. So I think the light language is actually translating some of our higher selves into us.
Yeah, I think I believe it's because, or even, my guide Black Elk's telling me now, it is because photon light therapy works from the deep unconscious to the subconscious into the conscious mind. So, I mean, with the unconscious, which we really sort of equate to the cosmos, really, you know. And then the subconscious being our memories and long-term associations, there in the frontal lobe of our brain. It works with the unconscious, it opens the subconscious, it brings everything conscious. Um, Obviously, as far as you're able to hold that frequency. So if there's any activation that you are ready for,
Yeah.
then the activation is done through photon light therapy. I do agree with that.
Well,
That's
it's very divine because it doesn't bring too much. I did several sessions with you. So it's very divine, like it's very subtle, like it's going to come as, like you said, as it's supposed to on a divine level as your soul is ready.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. I've never really known such a gentle therapy, but powerful therapy, specifically for a post-traumatic stress disorder. So I suffered greatly in my life with post-traumatic stress disorder. I had huge PTSD, huge, right up until I had a near-death experience in 2002, which was kind of like my second awakening in life, in which I reconnected with spirit and all of that stuff. Um, yeah, I think that at that particular time, my PTSD took on a very different manner of working. Intuition became a huge part of it. Clairaudience, clairvoyance, all of those, senses really stepped up to the plate. Um, and I cannot imagine for one moment that I'm any different than anybody else. If it helped me to step up, then it helps everybody to step up. And I've had many reports to say that it has. But it's very gentle, but very powerful for PTSD, for depression, for anxiety, PTSD. Um, it's even very powerful, Megan. I don't know if you've found this with your clients, but I've had clients that have stopped smoking, that have stopped even taking cannabis. Now, I had a client from Ireland who took on the photon light therapy and had 3 sessions of it, 3 10-day sessions of it, I think, um, over a series of like 9 months or something, and completely stepped away from an addiction to cannabis
Yeah, because I think it's
by
like it
himself, you
turns
know.
on the higher faculties. And most of these substances, especially plant medicine, those chemicals already exist in our brain. So like
Yes,
the endocannabinoid system, even like the endorphins, the all of the, I think the other one is the oxycontin, I think that, I don't know if that's the medicine or, but
the
there's,
one I'm very familiar with is the cannabinoid systems. You know, those are the ones that I'm working with at the minute, and actually taking CBD gummies, you know, for that too.
yeah,
But
so there's like all these systems, the endorphins, the endocannabinoids, the pain reliever, the stress reliever, and so it's like one. I think that that our brain then becomes in the mind then is because we've cleaned out some of the debris that's like an illusion basically, that then we're able to activate those parts of our brain in a natural,
yeah,
healthy manner without
yeah.
like substances or like
Those activators in the brain, or whatever you call them, receptors, or whatever you
yeah.
actually get cleaned and reset.
Yeah, and there was somebody, I think that the reason I brought up the pain medicine, I think there was somebody, I know someone I worked with that was able to withdraw or get themselves off of pain medication. And I think you had another example of somebody who was using substances that they were able to overcome that as
I
well.
did. I had quite a few. I think my first real joy with photon light therapy was way at the beginning. I'd only been practicing for weeks, maybe, and a lady who was extremely depressed began with photon light therapy and found that she could stop her meds. Um, Her son, also depressed, then decided he would do it for himself, stopped his meds, and he has gone on not only to not rely on medication and not experience um, depression, but he's gone on to experience an awakening, a huge awakening. That guy is incredible energy today. And he puts all of it down to photon light therapy. So I do believe we are talking about a powerful force here, healing force that could potentially change how we see magnetic healing even today, how we see magnetic heal, any sort of electromagnetic healing. So let me quickly move on to stage 2. Stage 2, again, the team will continue to work with your endocrine system. So they'll work with your pineal gland first. And now in stage 2, they're working with your pituitary gland. And they're bringing in whatever light, whatever information, whatever frequencies you need, or hormones you need to reset the pituitary gland. And of course, the pituitary gland is the master gland. And so if it's reset, then your entire nervous system can be reset. So very important to work with the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland and the pineal gland are very often called the third eye. And, you know, it's this chakra here, this energy center here. And so in stage 2, the photon light therapy doctors will practice psychic surgery. Now, there's one in particular that does that. And his name is Conady, Dr. Conady. I can't even think of his first name. I've drawn a blank. But Dr. Conady was a neurosurgeon. And of course, he's been dead many decades now, but he was a neurosurgeon and high up in his field, and now a very awakened soul, very awakened spirit. And so he perform psychic surgery through me or through the practitioner. The practitioner does this by, you see, anybody that's out there feeling that they'd like to be a practitioner, I'm speaking to you now. The practitioner does not have to be clued up on psychic surgery, or does not have to see themselves as that kind of a medium in order for the psychic surgery to actually work through them. All the practitioner is asked to do, and this is all that I was asked to do from the very beginning, and I'm sure you're the same. This is all that I asked you to do, Megan, is to sit in your root chakra, keep the red ray strong. That root chakra ray is
like be well embodied.
Keep it strong and strongly connected to the earth, and try to not invest your mind in the process at all. So being a practitioner of photon light therapy is not so much about understanding all of this stuff, this science stuff, this energetic stuff even. It's just about being able to get out of the way and let the photon light therapy team work through your etheric field to transmit to the client's etheric field.
Absolutely. And just like the disclaimer, like it's definitely it's not to discount certain medicines for people. This is more about people for the ability. It's always to go for like your medical advice, but it's important too to realize that the power of like the own body's ability to heal and to repair, because there's some problems with, long-term problems with certain, I think anytime we take like a chemical outside of ourselves, so I just wanted to add that disclaimer in there. But like with going back to what you said, it's really not necessarily to know all of it. It's interesting because I think there's just an aspect of me that's like a scientist, so she just knows, but that's not important. It's more about being embodied and then just letting the energy flow and then just trusting the process, and then also being aware of the client you're working with. So
absolutely, yes. So as long as the practitioner is well grounded and connected to the client and open, completely open, then the photon light therapy will do its work. And I remember even on one occasion that in order to alleviate any problems or any fears that I had around this, the photon light therapy team asked me to sit and receive the work and pass it on, but keep my head completely out of it, not to ask them any questions, not to view in my third eye what was going on, which I was, prone to do in those days. And so I sat until I heard it's done. And then I said, okay, it's done. And it was sent to the client. And that was one of the most powerful series of feedbacks that I got in that round, because I was totally taken away from out of the process. My ego was totally taken out of the process. So that I think that proves to us that it's not us per se. It's not our personality or our ego or our person at all that does this work. And it's certainly not my personality as Eliza White Buffalo that created this work, but it happened through me because I was out of the way.
Yeah.
And I'm the guardian of it. And very soon Megan will be the guardian of it too. So in stage 2, you have that little psychic surgery on the third eye. And, this is done on a little organ in the brain. And that organ in the brain, without me getting into too much science, that particular organ in the brain is responsible for keeping everything same old, same old. You see, it works with your subconscious. And it works with your long-term memories and associations, and it works with other glands, ego glands, you know, the hypothalamus and that. And it works with them, and what they all do really as a group is to say, well, these are the frequencies that this organism, being the client, these are the frequencies that this organism can embody without discomfort. And so we'll not top that. We'll make sure that everything steps down to that, at least to that. So you see, it keeps everything the same old, same old. With the operation on that particular organ, it allows the organ, it allows that group, that sort of little brain group to, or nervous system group, if you like, it allows them to say, oh, what the heck, let's go for it, you know, as if you're drunk. You know, when you're drunk, you just go, oh, what, hey, what, you know?
It puts down like the inhibitions and the protectiveness because it's trying to protect us. It's like trying to keep us alive in that flight or fright.
So it's a little bit like that, Meg, and so the higher frequency are allowed through. And then the next 3 stages are all about that higher frequency coming through and changing your nervous system and manifesting. So that's stage 2. It's a very, very important stage. Have you, Megan, I know the answer is going to be yes. Have you had feedback from clients that at stage 2 say that they feel like they have a cold, or they're all stuffed up and they've got a headache or a sore throat?
I've never had like real intense, but I've had some people said they felt like a little bit like out of it, like in a way that it's like I would say to like take it easy, like I wouldn't like excuse me, operate machinery, like operate heavy machinery.
And then you have to clear your throat.
Yeah. So I still had to there's still like, you know, I could still function and go to work and things like that. It's just that it's definitely like a little bit like a kind of that underwater feeling of being a little bit reorganized.
It's all part of that sort of reaction, you know, the body's reaction to that psychic surgery on the third eye, you see, which is here, you know, and it affects the sinuses and the you know, your eyes and your nose and your throat and your ears.
Ocular and nasal, some adjustment there.
Yeah, and oral, yeah.
There you go.
And you know, sometimes whenever I'm, you know, practicing photon light therapy for people, I wake up on a Tuesday morning, which is stage 2. I'll wake up on a Tuesday morning and I've got a headache, or I've got a scratchy throat, or I'm a little bit, you know, just caught up, and then I'll realize, oh my God, this is stage 2. That's why that's happening, you know.
And it's very subtle and it passes quite quickly too. So that's one thing. It's like
passes very quickly. I mean, within half a day, even, you know, if it doesn't pass that day, it'll be passed the next day, you know, it's nothing. It's very small. Yeah, it's very small.
Well, and something that helped me with that stage too is I'm like an advocate. We'll get into the breathwork stuff because that's part of one of the phases. But for me, it was a lot of like yoga meditation helped me kind of to stay in it, like, and some like really subtle like movement and breathwork just to kind of like would helped me kind of through that, or even like a bit of movement, you know, walking, things like that, where just keeping the body moving and keeping everything going.
That's right. And in fact, you know that movement is a very crucial part of photon light therapy. So we'll be getting to that in stage 3.
Yeah, exactly.
So
say more there.
Yeah. So stage 3 is the hydration stage. So hydration suggests that it's about water, it's about movement. So it is. So stage 3 is the stage where the nervous system starts to step up, and there's a sort of a higher level of movement happens within it, and it's rushing really with new energy. Electrons actually is the science of it, but we're not going to get into the science. But these electrons are new energy that are formed in the brain because of because of that little nervous system group saying, oh, what the heck, let's this higher frequency come through. So if you can imagine, there's, Megan, the exercise that you're given with photon light therapy, there's a little exercise, guys, that there's white noise in it, and there's a certain sort of guided exercise that you have to do with your senses as well. And that exercise is designed to help you open your subconscious, so that when the little nervous system group say, what the heck, let's go for it, then the subconscious is opened, and an awful lot more of your sort of hidden energy, your hidden power, so to speak, is allowed to be released from that, and is received by the little sort of group, nervous system group, and is allowed to flow through the nervous system. So this new energy is created, and this new energy is flowing through your nervous system. The team are also now working with your thyroid gland, which is all about the lymphatic system too.
Yep.
And the lymphatic system, what is that? It's water, it's movement.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about the lymphatic system, which I always find fascinating, is it doesn't actually have a pump. Like the heart has a pump. So the only way to get the lymphatic system to move is actually to move the body. So that's where the movement comes in. Even like doing like stretches, like where you like stretch out the like moving arms up and down, or jumping jacks or walking. So that's where the movement gets really important there. It's not like you have to run a marathon, but it's something to actually just a bit of movement to help that flow, to get
that's
that's
exactly why movement is in stage 3. And the movement that the client is asked to do in this stage is this sort of like a turning with the waist, in a clockwise direction. And you're doing this for quite some time, 3 minutes or whatever, And you see, what this does is, well, I mean, you guys, you might be aware, if you're not, and I'll tell you now that every cell in your body, every neuron, every electron, everything moves in a clockwise direction. It's continuously spinning. And when it's moving in a clockwise direction, that promotes a sort of a life-giving steroid. And that is also connected to the steroids that are naturally produced by your body to produce life and longevity of the systems of the body. So when you're doing this, you're actually creating a kind of a macro micro thing going on, where for example, you had a bucket of water and you put your finger in it and you started to go like this. And you might create like a little ripple for a while, and then this little whirlpool appears, and then it becomes this eddy, really, that's like almost like a cyclone coming up from the bottom of the bucket of water, where the entire water is moving like this. Every iota of water is moving like this. So that's what happens with the cells of your body during your photon light therapy in stage 3. As you do this, it's happening anyway, but as you do this, you are actually promoting that positive movement of cells in your body, and the nucleus and all of these things to connect within the cell. So everything starts to move in a life-promoting manner. And in fact, even if you weren't doing photon light therapy, there's days I might have a negative spin, where I react to something and I'll spin out into a negative manner. We all do that, and then we catch ourselves on and we go, stop it, center, ground, come on, So I'll sit down and I'll do this here, and that just helps me um in every way possible, mentally, psychologically, physically, helps me energetically to get into a positive flow again. Um, so I'll have to do that sometimes with myself, and that's something that anybody can do, regardless if I took photon light therapy or not. But with photon light therapy, you've also got the added bonus that your subconscious is opening, that previously hidden power or awareness is opened up and becoming conscious. And,
Yeah.
and this movement helps to bring it all through the nervous system in the form of new energy to be manifested in your body and life.
Yeah, so the exercises I think are amplified during the process too. So anything we do,
Yeah.
even as simply as if you were not able to leave the house to do that spinning, and even
Because of that force field, everything's
exactly.
amplified.
It just makes it easier on the psyche to release too, because you're supporting the physical body. So then in conjunction supports, but it also the amplification of whatever you're doing. It's just amplified more than like our usual day.
You can imagine it took me quite a long time to gain this level of understanding of what photon light therapy actually was. So I'd say it took me about a year to really understand what was happening. And since then, I've been practicing every month, and I believe you've been practicing every month now for at least a couple of years. But so stage 4 then. This is a very important stage, Megan. I know you agree with me. This is called oxygenation stage. And this is when all of those cells and the little nerve receptors in between your nerves, like a nerve isn't a long line, continuous line. There's actually little gaps in between in the nerve itself, and they're called synapses. And this is the synapses are responsible for the production of something called a neurotransmitter. And neurotransmitters are what give you those endorphins, a feel-good factor. This is why photon light therapy is very good for depression, or fibromyalgia or anything like that. It really promotes that feel-good factor, like somebody's turned the sun on in your life. And so photon light therapy provides all of this process with oxygen, and that's very necessary for this to be to proceed as efficiently as it can. The more oxygen, the better. And
Absolutely.
when you're, for example, as high as a kite, or you're on top of a mountain, thousands of feet up in the air, that the air's so thin and you're high that, your intuition is very spot on, you're very connected to spirit, you're very, very spiritually present, aren't you?
Absolutely.
I believe that's why, is because of that process through the nervous system. Because when you're up somewhere like that, the air's so thin, you're breathing so deep, and every breath that you take has to be so deep, and you're getting all this oxygen in
Because,
the
yeah, absolutely. I
nerve.
feel like as a society in general, we're not properly respirating, like in general, and like not like anything specific, but it's like we're not necessarily taught in childhood that the importance of the breath and like pulling it into the diaphragm. There's a lot.
Right.
Like I remember I went to a massage therapist a long time ago, and they had said put a book on your belly. When you breathe, make sure the book is
Yeah.
with your belly, because if we only breathe through the lungs, we're not properly, or through the nose up into the brain, we need to get oxygenated. So this, in short, in this practice, it's vitally important, but it also gets us into the awareness and practice of proper respiration and oxygenation, because then it makes it easier for our body to do what it needs to do. And which was really fun for me, because I had already been practicing breath work for at least like 6 months with some yoga practices I was doing. So within the instructions, it was like 10 minutes of breath work. I was like, no problem. That's already in my yoga class. So I do these kind of pranayama work, but
Yeah.
it
So
really
you were
is.
blessed to be doing yoga. that you
Yeah.
did
Well,
that. I was part of a singing group way back 20 years ago, and the teacher taught us to breathe like that, and I was completely flabbergasted. I hadn't realized that I wasn't breathing
yeah, it's
properly.
kind of mind blowing, and it can cause us pain and all sorts of stuff. And then it's like that same thing, like when someone's stressed out, and then or when we feel stressed out, and we're like, well, and then in Chinese, like in traditional Chinese
You have
medicine,
that feeling where you can't get enough
yeah. So that's like
oxygen,
that's our body's
you know,
natural way of
because
saying I
you're
need more
breathing like
oxygen.
this, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
and
So
it's
that
only when you breathe with your diaphragm that you can actually fill your lungs up.
yeah, and then that sigh of relief, and then it reminds me of the qigong, the Chinese medicine, where we're either breathing like the inhales and exhales should be kind of balanced. So if one is shorter than the other, there's also somewhere we're not getting oxygenated.
Um,
So the part of oxygenation is probably my well, I don't want to say favorite, but I do enjoy that part of the therapy because we're kind of gotten through it and then it's just like now it's oxygenation and I have noticed a few people that there's a resistance to breath work, and I do think that breath work can bring up some emotions, but it's so important to let those emotions out because those emotions are stagnant. They even say like grief we hold in the lungs, anger we hold in the liver. So the more we can release those emotions with like love, it's actually very healthy. And so in the breath work, sometimes you can just get a feeling of euphoria. Sometimes there might be like a release of tears. I
yeah,
know we call that compassionate release where we're just moving. So that it's also something to be aware of, but it's actually a beautiful thing. And it might be an expression of anger. It's like, oh, I'm angry. I need to like, you know, do something to express this. So I think in some ways the oxygen, general breath work and including
it allows you to really feel the emotions that are there. And I mean, that's what stage three is all about. Stage three is about releasing emotion, and flow. So it's not just about the flow of new energy into the nervous system. It brings with it all of that energy that was being stagnated. So it allows it to move on. It's like, a stream of water that's blocked, and you suddenly, dump all this water in, and it just whoosh, goes like this, and it's a rush, this rush of energy when you do oxygen, when you do the breath work in stage four. And so all of that emotion comes with it. Emotion equals flow, flow equals emotion.
and then if there is like a hesitation to that, I think it's just continuing to breathe, and just like it only takes about 10 minutes. I always tell people
Yeah,
when they say, well, I don't have time, it's like, well, you have to look at how you're managing time. And if we can each
exactly.
hours of shows, it's 10 minutes. So
Yeah.
it's just a
And,
very,
and even just to sit down and go back to this, and I always say to people, you look, this is stage three, but keep going from stage three throughout and never
yeah.
stop. Never stop.
And you
Just,
can even breathe while doing that, just like it doesn't have to be a
uh-huh.
specific breath,
Yeah.
it's just
Just
conscious breathing while you're moving. Yeah. And
that,
then
yes.
stage
Yeah.
four, the oxygenation.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, and then stage five is pretty much a completion stage where you know everything is burnt up. It's like the phoenix rising from the ashes, isn't it? It's that fiery stage where it's everything is reborn, everything becomes anew again, and and yes, there is after stage five, and there's another couple of days right through to day 10, in which you're asked just to keep continuing with this movement. And then there's that movement with stage five that is almost like a meditation with your breath and with your connection to your body. And it just brings you right into the body in a physically present way and spiritually present way as well, and allows integration to take place. And I mean, if there is some wayward emotional energy there, then takes care of it. It
Absolutely.
absolutely takes care of it.
The other thing
Uh,
that I really like to do, even when I first did it, was in the winter and like we were up in the mountains, but I would just connect. I would look outside and just connect with nature. Or if you're able to go out and put your bare feet down, it's always good then as you're integrating to like connect with the earth as much and to stay as
And it's
embodied.
funny you say that, because I remember whenever Spirit was teaching me that sort of stage 5 completion in the first place when they're talking about it. It actually came through whilst I was walking on the beach in my bare feet. And I was in the shallows of the waters, and because Black Elk, my guide, had wanted me to. He does this thing often with me where he gets me to go to the beach or to do this or to do that because he likes to feel that physical experience again through me. And we're quite practiced now in being merged together. So it was in one of these situations that suddenly this information about stage 5 photon light therapy came through, and I was walking bare feet in the shallows of the water, in the freezing cold water. So yeah, that's the 5 stages, and I think basically what photon light therapy does, I mean, if I was to put it into a sentence, I would say photon light therapy not only opens your subconscious and allows your hidden energy to be released, but it gives you the tools to bring that energy right through without resistance into the manifestation stage.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because for me, I had various experiences with healing before photon light therapy came into my life. And I would say that my own nervous system had never healed until photon light therapy came about, or my own life hadn't even healed before photon light therapy came about. And now it's just, it's a real beauty. It's so wonderful.
It's
I'm
a wonderful gift.
very happy and very well.
One of the things I wanted to add in, which I thought was important, is I remember when I had first met you and I said, I think I need you to look at my past lives because I think there's something, and we did an empowered lifetime retrieval because I had asked and you said, well, probably an empowered one. And then I said, well, do I need to do more of the like disempowered lifetime? Do I need to do like the underworld or
the basic soul retrievals?
Yeah, soul retrieval, there's the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
So, and you said, well, the photon light therapy will actually do some of that. And so I noticed that there is actually, there's actually soul retrieval being done through the process. And
More than one.
yeah, exactly. So you're doing multiple soul retrievals.
Yeah,
And
multiple soul retrievals. It's worth 20 soul retrievals.
yeah, exactly. And then that's where I feel like the gifts come back online because our subconscious, unconscious, all those parts, those multidimensional parts are all holding on to like these past traumas. And I've even heard that the ego is part of like protecting us because the ego remembers, well, but there, the different parts of the mind that's like trying to protect us from harm that's happened. There's people talk about the witch wound. I mean, that could go on and on, but it's that those aspects become resolved in a way. And I feel that's also what activates the gifts to come on. Because I remember I started singing light language. Like I had begun like before with like hand movements and gestures. And then all of a sudden I'm like, I remember getting a drum. I was told to get a drum. And then next thing I'm connecting to my lifetimes as a shaman. And the next thing I know, I'm leading drum circles and I'm like singing light language. And I was like, I would never have guessed that when I had begun my spiritual journey that I would be singing in a light language at a drum circle. And it just came to me because all the insights started to come into me and I started to trust it as opposed to like being stuck in like these loops of like my own struggle of like what I had created. And of course I'm not dismissing anybody's struggle, absolutely. But I think the empowerment that comes from the photon light therapy and giving our physical body the chance to connect to our empowered self or center, and this goes into more of Black Elk's teachings, but so of the center of power. But so that it's a whole nother topic, but I just wanted to add that in there because I feel like that was really important. And it makes it a lot easier than having to go dive into every lifetime and like, oh, exactly what happened. And there's not necessary to go in and relive the trauma. It's just about lifting it to the light.
It is, yes. Yeah, I agree with you. You don't really need to get into that drama. I mean, soul retrievals are very powerful and they're helpful for you to understand yourself, to understand what's going on. But You really only need to release the energy and then let it flow. That's
Absolutely.
really all you need. So you don't really need to buy too much into drama. You know,
Yeah.
you've drama enough in this lifetime without
Yeah.
more drama from previous lifetimes. But it
Like,
definitely helps with the understanding. And I mean, yes, I mean, the retrievals that I do, people love them, you know, and I'm very good at going into past lives. I mean, I see things so vividly and
yeah.
hear and receive names and everything. But yeah, before just I'm just aware of the time and I don't want to make this video too long for people, you know. So, but before we go, I'd like to just discuss a little bit with you, Megan, about photon light therapy for children. Um, and for sensitive adults. So the sensitive adult version is a bit like the version for children, but it's basically the entire photon light therapy, whereas the children's version is just 2 days, works with the pituitary gland and the thyroid gland, and very much is focused on the maturity of the nervous system and the maturity of the endocrine glands, you know. So because much of the understanding on the spiritual realm, certainly with the photon light therapy team, all of conditions such as autism in children and all of these autistic spectrum conditions that you have now, and all sorts of neurodivergence, um, arises out of trauma, arises out of some kind of irregularity of the nervous system, dysregulation of the nervous system, whether that comes from a previous lifetime and carried through, or whether it's simply because of the child's childhood, you know. I'm a great believer that the child comes in perfect and with all the tools that it needs to begin and do what it needs to do. But with previous lifetimes, those kind of energies do come with it. So there is already a tendency for a child maybe to go in a certain direction. And I do believe that's what creates personality as well. Um, but I mean, my goodness, when I first started interacting with Black Elk again and realized that actually he is me, that we're twin souls. It made such sense to me. His vision, his talk about the two roads, and all that he had seen and prophesied made such sense to me because of the person that I am and the dreams that I had. You know, it seemed like it was almost the same thing. And in fact, I remember seeing a little drawing of a part of his vision and looking at it and going, that's my dream. You know,
Yeah.
it's my dreams in that book. You know, so it's like there's a little
Yeah.
bit of book about shamanism when they were mentioning
Well,
Black Elk.
yeah. Well, that brings me to the reminder too, is I think a lot of these kids are born very psychic with a lot of
Yeah,
psychic gifts. And so I think when they're not in a and when parents aren't aware, they're probably seeing all this stuff and so overstimulated and not
it
able to
can be
understand.
completely overwhelming for them, especially when the parents are not aware. I mean, a conscious parent is the biggest gift that children have these days, you know, and I am so pleased every time I'm talking to a conscious parent and they talk to me about their child. It's such a delight to hear about how the child is progressing. But a lot of them, in particular those with autistic tendencies and adults with autistic tendencies, um, do have dysregulated nervous systems. And the photon light therapy for children or for sensitive adults is designed towards maturing the nervous system, maturing the pituitary gland and the thyroid gland in particular, and then has all of the benefits of the regular version of photon light therapy as well. So anybody that has a child that is suffering from anxiety or some kind of mental illness even, or even is on the autistic spectrum, that it might be an idea just to give photon light therapy for kids a go. There's
Yeah.
photon light therapies for babies, children, and teenagers, adults, and sensitive adults, and listen, even for dogs.
Yeah.
Photon light therapy for dogs. Now, so far there's not for cats because it is self-explanatory. Cats have their own consciousness. Cats are the supreme rulers of the universe, and they will not bow to anything or be affected by anything. So, dogs' nervous systems are almost exactly like a human nervous system. They're so similar that photon light therapy works with dogs as well.
I know, and I wish I would have had it didn't come through to you, but if I would have had when I had Ella when she was around, but it's so interesting
I
because
know,
she was
lovely dog.
she was a mirror to me, and she was part of my healing journey. And so she had very similar health issues that I had, interestingly enough, as I healed, and she would absorb. But it's just interesting how our dogs can mirror us in a way, and how they
Yeah.
certain people heal. Like where cats bring amazing medicine too, but like you said, the cat's like,
You see, cats are great healers too. I believe I'm a cat person. And I have noticed, and I would say many people that are listening will maybe agree if they're a cat person. I've noticed that the cats I had were always mirroring an ailment that I might have had, at a time when I would have been saying to Black Elk, I can't hear properly. I need to practice clairaudience. My cat was deaf, and Spirit kept saying, you don't listen, you don't listen. And
yeah,
it's
these
true, I wasn't
amazing
listening.
animal beings that come in our
Yeah.
life are such teachers.
I've got a bad hip because I had a near-death experience due to a car accident, and my bones from the waist down were shattered. So, my mobility is very limited. So, um, and and then after they had the cat with the deafness, a cat came in, and she adopted a bad leg, and she had to have a wee leg taken off her.
Oh,
Isn't that strange? See, I think cats absorb negative energy. And so they help you to heal by absorbing whatever negative energy that you're holding in your energy field, and it's mirrored in your body. So it's mirrored in their body too. And
yeah.
I think that it doesn't harm them. They're very good at doing this. You'll often find them lying on negative ley lines or blocked ley lines and things like that, and they'll clear those ley lines.
Oh, they're amazing. And it reminds me of the cat I had in college. Well, I lived at my mom and dad's. My dad's like deathly allergic to cats, but her name was Ariel actually. And
Also lovely name.
I remember the awakening she brought me as a 20-year-old, which was when I look back, I'm like, whoa, I really did have an awakening back then, but I kind of went into ignorance a little bit as I was too young to understand. But yeah, the
Yeah.
medicine she brought to me, I didn't realize it till years later. I was like, wow, the calmness, the medicine the cats, because they are like, they're like transmuters.
Um,
So
right.
really,
Definitely. Definitely. To me, they're sacred. They're sacred animal. I love dogs as well, but I'm not a dog person. But anyway, so back to photon light therapy. We're going to round up now, folks, and thank you so, so, so much for bearing with us thus far and for listening in and finding out all about this amazing therapy. Um, I would say to those that are interested in practicing this that there is a specific photon light therapy team. Now, a lot of them don't give a name, but Black Elk is a part of it. Sigmund Freud is a part of it. Albert Einstein is like an umbrella intelligence for photon light therapy, where it doesn't come directly from Albert Einstein's spirit. It is of his intelligence. So, in a way, you could say it's of his soul energy, it's soul grip, it's of his soul grip. So, that energy is there. There's Dr. Connolly, Wilbur Connolly. Um, such a lovely name, Wilbur. Dr. Connedy's an amazing surgeon. There's a lady, a beautiful lady with long blonde hair, and it's right down to the small of her back, her hair. And she is an autistic lady. And she learned to communicate with the Helen Keller version of communication because she was blind and deaf at birth. So she could not communicate, and she learned through the Helen Keller, and she was also highly autistic. Autism very often comes with sensory problems. And very often, if you're an adult and you're not diagnosed as being on the autistic spectrum, if you have some kind of issue with one of your senses, that could be because you actually are on the autism spectrum. That's what I have discovered anyway. So there's that lady, I don't know her name. The way that I communicate with her is through telepathy. And she gives me pictures rather than words. So she's sending me pictures through her imagination, and I'm translating those pictures. There's a shaman from South America called Storm, who's oh my gosh, he is a storm,
Yeah.
absolute storm. And I say there's Sigmund Freud as well. But your guides, your spirit guides, will take part if you ask them to, and they are welcome to take part and welcomed by Sigmund Freud to take part if you ask them to as well, simply because if they can use your guides like Sigmund Freud uses black elk, if they can use your guides to communicate with you and to communicate this therapy through you, it will be much, much easier for them to do so because you are so used to communicating with your guide with that familiar energy, you see. So that's your guides are clearly very, very welcome to participate in this as well. But there is that sort of skeleton group that is the Photon Light Therapy team. Okay, so unless Megan, you have something else weird and wonderful to add to this podcast, I'd like to take the opportunity now to thank everybody for having patience with us through the first phase of it, trying to go live.
Oh, that was so bizarre, but I think this platform actually worked better in terms of being able to like with the Zoom. I want to add one small thing I've noticed in my practice is that sometimes our galactic team will come through. So our galactic guides might work through too, because I think sometimes there are that they also are such an integral part, and because the energy is very much from the stars and the heavens, that I've seen that come through not only with my own but with other people's. And again, I've had a few people that connected with them and became aware of them. So that's really cool, I thought, and fun. And and you usually know when you're called to do the therapy. You'll have the intuitive nudge. You'll be drawn to it for some reason. Like I was actually drawn to a part. I remember after doing it maybe 3 times with you, I was like, I want to do this. I want to. And I had another friend of mine, she said, I want to help people with this. So there's just a nudge, and it's really not complicated. Like, although we've talked about some of the layers of it, it's actually really not that complicated. And the science is of course an integral part of it, but it's not necessary to know all of the details. It's about being embodied and grounded and being able to like consciously hold the energy. And then it's actually quite simple. So, and beautiful.
I actually remember way back whenever I first began to teach practitioners, because I didn't teach from the beginning. It was maybe 3 or 4 years before I started to teach. And I actually remember Black Al giving me a list of 10 people. I think it was about 10. It was 9 or 10 there, I think. It could have been more, I don't know. But and said that these are the people that we're inviting to join us. And I do know, and I remember very distinctly that 6 of those people joined up very quickly. So they are connecting with you. They're watching your energy field, you see. You know, they're watching your energy field. They know you're connected with me, that there's a form of communication there. They're watching your field. They're deciding, yes, this energy field could be potentially very good for the work. And they almost put that idea forwards. And then perhaps through your own guides, I imagine. And then your own guides are then saying to you, you got to do this, you got to do this.
Yeah.